I mean, in the last resort, I suppose I'm what they call a romantic. A critic recently called me the last of the romantics, and for some reason, I don't generally preen my feathers over what the critics say, but I was pleased about this. He gave me some sort of a niche. And by my understanding of the romantic is that I work from the heart.
Sven Berlin's ability to react to his intuition and instinct meant he came to art from a somewhat unorthodox route of adagio dancing. Born in London in 1911, he sought the excitement of performing and met his first wife Helga doing so.
The training was extremely hard, but he was very interested in the forms that the body made and the whole appearance on stage and his own strength, which he was very proud of.
Sven left school aged 12 following the failure of his father's business. He managed to squeeze in 6 weeks' study with artist Henry Carr at the Beckenham School of Art, but his itinerant lifestyle as a dancer meant he was able to develop his artistic skills in Cornwall, where he subsequently moved with Helga. The war intervened and Sven changed his stance from conscientious objector and joined up in 1942. His drawings and later the book, I Am Lazarus, charts his experiences. The war cost him his marriage. Returning to Cornwall ill and exhausted, he eventually settled in the famous St Ives Tower, where he rebuilt his love of sculpture.
You see, in stone you start from an outside. You start with a block of stone and you penetrate into the image and you penetrate to the centre. You pierce the stone, you twist it. You make it come to life out of this either rectangular thing which has come from the quarry or this boulder which you found on the beach.
That's Mermaid Angel. That was carved in the tower in 1948 and it was a very famous figure and Sven always took it around with him and exhibited it everywhere. And he fell out with the art group in Cornwall because of that one, because it was too, it wasn't modern enough. It was romantic and Rodin-ish and everything else, but he stuck to his guns with things like this and this is why I admired him so much.
Despite living in relative poverty and having to rely on working on the land, Sven's artistic career was burgeoning. He had an exhibition at the Penlee Gallery in London and in St Ives with the Crypt Group and Penwith Society. But his more traditional views about art conflicted with the abstract flavour of the day, favoured by the likes of Nicholson and Hepworth.
Stokes stuck by Sven all the way through and knew he was all right. But Nicholson went the other way and I shouldn't, get on about poor old Ben. He wasn't so bad, but there were a competitive streak in them and it was a hard streak and he didn't tolerate Sven. Although I've got a lovely letter from Barbara Hepworth saying to Sven and Helga come round for supper and everything else and there wasn't no real nastiness, it was just a competitiveness about art.
By this time, Sven had married Juanita, a colourful character who also painted. They set off in a gypsy caravan, settling in the New Forest. Sven's children with Helga, Paul and Janet, are pictured here with Juanita, who also had a son Will from her previous marriage. They had Jasper together. The gypsy community became their life. Local and London exhibitions were forthcoming at this time, which Sven himself recognised as a turning point in his career. Thanks to a legacy of Juanita's, they moved into a house home farm, complete with a barn to work in, and they set up a menagerie. Animals were a source of great inspiration to Sven, who valued all aspects of his creativity.
He didn't sell himself cheap. I think every piece was a masterpiece, according to Sven. He was And he would persuade you of that. I mean, he was quite good at that. So he valued his work highly, and he wanted to leave a legacy behind as well. And I think that was key to everything that he did.
Well, the chap behind me, that's Timeless Man, who was Goliath, and he was slain by David with a catapult and a pebble, and that's why he's got the craggy stone. And he carved him in 1954. And he wrote a predella about him at the end. And this predella, at the end of it, he said, keep it with you, it'll bring you luck all your life. So, and I think it has.
Juanita and Sven's marriage split as she left to marry the Irish groom. Soon afterwards, the publication of Sven's book, The Dark Monarch, caused a furore. This was the book that controversially criticised the modernist movement in Cornwall and the characters within it. By this stage, 1963, he'd met and married Julia, 31 years his junior.
And no, he wrote to me and said, well, he thought that he was too old for me, and I accepted that. And because I was very young, I was a very innocent girl. I had no experience of anything. and I accepted that, and then he phoned. No, he wrote to me again, and he said, "Oh, what a silly old fool I am! I've been offered this new life. I've got, if I can, a second chance." Because when I met him, he's in a miserable state, and I don't think he would have survived. And then he was a very lucky man. He had a second chance at life.
Julia helped Sven over one pivotal line in The Dark Monarch.
Sven said to me, if you say so, I will change that. But he said, as it is, it stands now. It stands as a work of art, and it stands for freedom of speech and in literature. And I said, no, keep it. So I don't know if I'd say that now, but I was very young, and you're very impressionable, aren't you, at that age? And you'd fight the lion, wouldn't you, if you had to? Yes. But that's what we did, and we went to the Isle of Wight.
But the point is, if one sets out to be an artist, it's a very serious thing, and it comes from the roots of one's being. Well, you can't worry what hat somebody is going to wear this spring.
Home Farm was sold to pay for legal fees. Output was tempered by not having a studio. Eventually they returned to a gamekeeper's cottage near Wimborne in Dorset, and he regained his creative edge from a studio in the back garden.
He had huge energy. The output of work was quite extraordinary, and he was, I've never known, I was 31 years younger than he, and I couldn't keep up with him, no. If he wasn't working, I can remember walking up Home Farm path, and he'd suddenly trip in the air, or things would jump off the wall. Such huge energy. I couldn't, I've never known anything like it.
Even in later life, he was as happy with the postman admiring his work as he was with the appreciation of the art world.
He used to keep us all in boxes, and when we went to his funeral service, they all came out of the blue, and some of the people were really put off because they thought, we didn't know he had all these friends, but we knew he had a few.
Sven's legacy as an artist, writer, sculptor and poet is enormous. A larger-than-life charismatic character, he died aged 88.